Good morning. It's good to see all of you online and those of you that are here in person with me this morning, just a few of us in the snowing parking lot. Let's sing a morning song together. We're going to start with hymn number 317, We Are Not Our Own. And online you can find the lyrics posted in the chat per usual. And it's in the gray hymn book, hymn number 317, We Are Not Our Own.
Good morning. Welcome to the Olympia UU congregation. Whoever you are, whatever you are bringing in your heart and body this morning, we are glad you are with us.
We envision an interconnected world that is loving, just, and healthy. We are committed to living out our mission to welcome and wonder, embrace and empower, bridge and become. We are grateful we can gather today. My name is Liz Clement. I use she, they pronouns.
My name is Emmy Allen, and I use they, them pronouns. And we will be celebrants this morning. Leading worship with us today is our minister, Reverend Mary Gear, and Troy Fisher, our music director.
A few things to know about today's service. We're streaming live on Zoom and YouTube, and the service is being recorded. We're a multi-generational community, and we value our young ones. Babies, kids, tweens, and teens are welcome to join us always when we gather together online and when we gather in person.
We offer great gratitude for the many hands that helped make worship happen this morning, and especially this morning to our tech team. After the service, everyone will have the chance to discuss reflection questions offered by Reverend Mary. For those online, we invite you to go into a breakout room for a virtual coffee chat. If you like, feel free to check in with each other too. It's good to be able to look out for each other in the ways that we can. At 11:30, please return to the main Zoom room for a forum offered by the Thurston Youth Climate Coalition, which includes several of our own OUUC youth, as they lead a teach-in about Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. This is an exciting opportunity to see amazing youth in action. Then at 1 p.m., join the OUUC Environmental Action Team for a forum on trees, legacy forests, carbon capture, and legislation, right here on the same Zoom link. There are many things happening at Olympia UU, from a variety of groups to Thursday community dinners and spiritual practice, to study and action groups as well. Check out the Tuesday electronic update or the website for the most up-to-date information.
Now, let us open our hearts and our minds as we prepare for worship. Welcome, everyone. It is good to be together. This morning, we join Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world in lighting a chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition. Please join us as we light our chalices together this morning with the words of Sarah Eileen Lawal. Out of the flames of fear, we rise with courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace.
Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith with hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe of all there is and all that is yet to be.
Out of the flames of hate, we rise with the force of love, love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames, we rise.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Mary, and I use she, her pronouns. Thank you all for your nimbleness as we went online today for the snowstorm that wasn't nearly as bad as we expected. I appreciate the many hands that make Sunday morning happen, and I especially appreciate your flexibility. Our opening words this morning call on our ancestors. They are inspired by the work of Reverend Christina Shue and Reverend Tara Little. As we gather this morning, we remember that we are part of a lineage, we as individuals and we as a community. We take a moment to honor our ancestors, an ancient spiritual practice found in many cultures and traditions. So just take a moment now to bring into your heart and mind your ancestors, those who loved you into being. It might be your birth family, your chosen family, your spiritual family. We call on them that they may be with us in this space here this morning. We call on the early Unitarians and Universalists, lay people and ordained ministers who brought our faith tradition to this place, the Pacific Northwest. We call on the ancestors of this Olympia Unitarian Universalist congregation who built, grew, and dreamed this church and this community into being. We call on those who represent diverse cultures and traditions, including the indigenous peoples of this land, the Squaxin Island tribes. We call upon our activist ancestors, those who struggled for justice, freedom, and liberation for all people, who challenge us to honor the fullness of each and every human being. We call upon and honor the beauty of this earth, our interconnectedness to nature, and to the history of this land itself. We have welcomed this great cloud of witnesses to join us here this morning. Can you feel them? May our ancestors guide us on our way. May they bless this space and time and the work that we do together. Come, let us worship together.
And let's sing together again. Out of the great hymnal, hymn number 298, Wake Now My Senses. And online you can find the lyrics posted in the chat. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quest for the true. Honor the beauty of wisdom and time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. And striving their hardships to end. Wake now my conscience with justice thy guide. Join all the people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my path with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work for a planet transformed by our care. Thank you for singing.
This month we have been exploring the spiritual theme of liberation. This is OUUC member Ann Hundley offering a reflection on our theme.
Liberation is a vision of interdependence, where everyone has access to contribute their gifts. For me, this means learning to recognize courageous love and being love to the people I'm near. Liberation shows up in my UU faith through coffee chats, getting to know people in OUUC community care and beyond. Liberation shows up as people's presence. They're listening, they're sharing. I appreciate the practices for welcoming love, like taking breaths and just noticing feelings when that come up in challenging moments. Liberation shows up in how I live my life when I recognize and build onto love in everyday moments. This looks like making reliable time to connect with and really hear from important people in my life who I can take for granted and who I'm blessed with. What about liberation do I struggle with? I struggle to have my ways of being align with love. Habits of individualism mean I can avoid challenges that would actually help connect. I'm grateful for the help of others in this lifelong work. I feel it's inviting us to see our shared interest in calls to transform our communities toward justice. I feel it's inviting us to learn parts of our own stories and strengths that may have yet to be recognized or really had a chance to be voiced. It's asking us to name when excluding assumptions are voiced so that we can become more welcoming. It's asking us to help and appreciate each other. Our call around liberation is to honor the love of people who have experienced oppressions like classism, ableism, homophobia, racism, transphobia, sexism, including vital leaders of this faith tradition. The charge is to believe people when they name a systemic harm and support justice struggles. When I'm positioned to not really be able to intellectually understand a systemic harm, I can still learn to respond with mighty love. Thank you.
Each Sunday, we express our gratitude by joining together in service to our community and to something greater than ourselves. The offering collected here does two things. It supports the ongoing work of Olympia UU, which is also supported by your regular pledges. This offering also supports an organization that serves our community in harmony with our Unitarian Universalist values. Our Share the Plate organization for January and February is the Community Kitchen. This is what they share about their work.
Hi, my name is Turtle, and I'm the program supervisor for the Community Kitchen. And we would like to say thank you to the Olympia Unitarian Universalist congregation for being a part of the Community Kitchen. You're an amazing bunch of folks and a blessing to all of us and all those in need. Your contributions help the Community Kitchen produce more than 100,000 meals a year for our hungry neighbors, most of which live outdoors and are unsheltered. Due to the severity of poverty and vulnerability felt by communities, your gift has provided the purchase of a life-sustaining, nutrient-rich food that nourishes the young and old alike. Many members in your congregation volunteer to prepare and serve meals at the Community Kitchen, and because you're a part of the ongoing need, your resources has fed tens of thousands of people and produced millions of meals since its founding 2 decades ago. Our partnership can accomplish more together than each can do individually as we combine our strengths and resources to live out our call to serve. And with that said, we are deeply grateful for you and your partnership, and know that together we bring the good news and loving presence of God to the poor and most vulnerable among us. So thank you, and for all of your love, time, and support to feeding those in need and being a part of the Community Kitchen. Thank you.
You can participate in the offering by making a donation online through the church website or by texting the number that will appear on your screen. You can also mail a check to OUUC. May the offering now be generously given as it is gratefully received.
Thank you so much for your generous gifts. We came together this morning bringing everything that is in our lives. Let's open our hearts to the complexity of life as we place stones into the water of community. You will hear a drumbeat as we share today. It brings into our awareness that our individual hearts beat, and together we create the heartbeat of our community. So right now, let's just all take a deep breath together. In and out. As we open our hearts to receive the complexity of all that is in our lives and our communities today. Susan Moon shares that her daughter-in-law Jana is 2/3 of the way through chemotherapy treatment for Hodgkin's lymphoma. Jana and Susan's son Ethan have a 19-month-old baby, Alice. They are isolated now to protect Jana's immune system and feeling overwhelmed and alone. Susan asks that we send prayers to Jana, her doctors, Ethan, baby Alice, and anyone else we can think of. They are so young and this is so hard. Susan, we send our love and care to all of you. May you feel the connection of this community of care. James Trujillo shares that he has accepted a wonderful new job with Lane County in Oregon, so his family will be moving to Eugene in the coming months. They hope to be fully moved in the summer. James, Brian, Austin, and Chloe have been active members of OUUC for 7 years, and we so appreciate their presence. I am especially grateful to James for his part on the search team that brought me to Olympia and for his service on the board. Trujillo family, I see you online today. Know that we'll miss you and we wish you the very best. You go with our love. Now I invite you to share from your heart by entering in the chat. This is a time to share all that you wish, joys and sorrows and whatever else is shared from your heart. Let's hear the heartbeat of our community and reach out our hearts in love and care to all those who share. We place a stone in the water for all that has been and is being shared online, shared from the heart. And one more stone placed in the water for all that we hold in our hearts and that remains unspoken. Would you please join me in the spirit of prayer with these words offered by the Reverend Elizabeth Wynne. God of mercy, Spirit who makes peace out of war, who wanders with refugees and keeps vigil with children at our border and all borders. Holy healer in hospitals and shelters, at schools, in homes, at weddings, and in planes. May your love be balm for all the hurt. May your truth be present in offices of power and in the hearts of soldiers and civilians alike. Many times we've thought the arc was bending toward justice. Many times we saw it happen in courtrooms and in streets, in the hearts of people creating their own liberation. Many times we've also doubted. For those of us this morning who doubt, who despair that brokenness and suffering and war may win, remind us of the small mercies, the tiny triumphs. Hope does dwell in this world. Amen. Let's hold a moment of silence together.
Let's sing together hymn number 1029 out of the Till Hymn book. Love knocks and waits. Love knocks and waits for us to hear, to open and invite. Love longs to quiet every fear and seeks to set things right. Love offers life in spite of foes who threaten and condemn. Embracing enemies, love goes the second mile with them. Love comes to heal the broken heart, to ease the troubled mind. Without a word, love bids us start to ask and seek and find. Love knocks and enters at the sound of welcome from within. Love sings and dances all around and feels new life begin.
Today's first reading is an excerpt from the charge that created the Article 2 Study Commission. It is taken from the Article 2 Study Report from the Unitarian Universalist Association, published in January 2023. The Article 2 Study Commission is hereby charged to review Article 2 of the UUA bylaws and propose any revisions that will enable our UUA, our member congregations, and our covenanted communities to be a relevant and powerful force for spiritual and moral growth, healing, and justice. Proposed changes should articulate the core of UU theological values. The board believes that one core theological value shared widely among UUs is love. The new principles and purposes should guide us in the transformation of ourselves, our communities, and our faith into active networks of collective care, restoration, and justice.
Part 1, the charge. The Article 2 Study Commission. Such a dry name for such important work, said the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, President of the Unitarian Universalist Association, the UUA. It's important work because Article 2 of the UUA bylaws contains the definition of who we are as Unitarian Universalists, the purpose of the association, the principles by which we seek to live, the sources of our inspiration and grounding, and the covenant by which we come together as UU congregations. Article 2 also contains a statement of inclusion and that we value freedom of belief. There's a lot packed into a little small part of the organization's bylaws. The Article 2 Study Commission was formed in 2020 and charged with reviewing the current bylaws. Now, creating the commission didn't come out of the blue. A review of Article 2 is required every 15 years. Changes to the bylaws can only be made by a vote of delegates or representatives from UU congregations across the country, at a General Assembly when we gather each year in June. The bylaws were last reviewed in 2007-2008, and suggested changes were brought to the 2009 General Assembly for delegates to vote on. We were due for a review, and the world has changed a little bit since then. The fact that we review who we are and how we say who we are on a regular basis is why we are called a liberal religion. Liberal and conservative religion isn't a political affiliation, but rather, in part, how we relate to our sacred texts. And I would name Article 2 as a sacred text. It's a covenant. Conservative religions believe that sacred texts, like, say, the Bible, for example, are to be read as they were written and interpreted at the time they were written. The interpretation is given, it's set in stone and not changed. The meaning is conserved, and so it's called conservative. Liberal traditions believe that everything grows and changes, so our sacred texts are to be reinterpreted in order to be relevant to the times we are in and the people we are now. That's why UUs call ourselves a living tradition. We name it on our hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition. We expect change. We invite change. We even require it. The Articles 2 Study Commission has spent almost 3 years in an extensive process of reviewing Article 2 of the bylaws, and they have proposed a significant update. You can find the report on the UUA website and at the link that Teresa just put in the chat. To gather input for their review, the Commission engaged in conversation with many stakeholders, from religious professionals to congregants, seminaries to justice ministries, and affiliated organizations like Black Lives UU and many other identity groups. The Commission also reached out to people who were unchurched, but who identify as Unitarian Universalist, and others who have left our faith. They were intentional about inviting diverse opinions and voices. And the report notes that, quote, over the course of its work, the Commission engaged in 45 feedback sessions with 4,611 total participants. Their videos reached 7,765 viewers, and their 29 surveys generated a total of 10,925 responses. The process that the Commission used to gather input was one of the most extensive and inclusive that I have ever seen in more than 30 years as a Unitarian Universalist. The proposed update meets the charge of the Commission, that the Commission was given, in that it articulates 7 core theological values for Unitarian Universalism. Those values are interdependence, equity, transformation, pluralism, generosity, justice, and at the center, love. Several of you have noted that the Commission's report defines 6 of the values, but not love. And that is a rich and juicy topic for another day. What I am most impressed with is that the Commission lived the values it proposes, that we hold dear. Not only did the Commission reach out to many diverse people and communities, the members of the Commission itself represent the diversity of our faith. This is a photo of the Commission members. They come from many identities across generations and from congregations large and small. The Commission set a standard for walking our talk, showing us that Unitarian Universalism can be a multicultural and inclusive faith.
Our second reading is another excerpt from the charge that created the Article 2 Study Commission. The principles and purposes you will prepare should be a living document that challenges Unitarian Universalists to place the liberation in all its dimensions of all at the center of our lives. They should be honest about our past, name what we are facing and our aspirations, and where we hope to be not for just today, but looking out at the horizons. They should ask us to choose love in action as the path forward. Our commitment to anti-racism, anti-oppression, and multiculturalism is love in action and should be centered in any revision of Article 2. Finally, the principles and purposes should lead us into the second quarter of the 21st century, while honoring the historic roots of our liberal progressive faith.
Part 2, History and Exploration. The first Article 2 of the bylaws was created in 1961, when the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America consolidated. The first purposes and principles from that time reflect the biases of our culture and of our ancestors. For example, those first principles speak of the brotherhood of man, and the last of the original 6 principles was to encourage cooperation with men of goodwill in every land. Fortunately, we've changed a bit since then. The principles and sources as we know them now were created in 1985. UU women involved in the feminist movement demanded removal of the patriarchal language, and people in the environmental movement wanted recognition of the web of all life. So the 6th source of earth-centered traditions was added in 1995. Since then, there have been a few tweaks and changes to our principles and our sources. There have been many discussions and proposals, but the purposes, principles, and sources have remained pretty much the same. But there have also been rumblings for change, as there always have been through our history. The first principle project wanted to change the language to the inherent worth and dignity of all beings, not just of all people. The 8th Principle Project has been working for a decade to add a principle on being a multicultural, beloved community. Many UU congregations went ahead and adopted the 8th Principle on our own, committing to the work of racial justice. In our faith tradition, congregations have the power to determine their own identity, their priorities, their governance, and their ministers. Some people were concerned that the principles were becoming a creed. We are a creedless faith, meaning that we don't tell people what to believe, but we support each other as we discern what we value and believe for ourselves. But when people ask, "What do you believe?" Well, it's easy to just share the principles. The Commission took all of that history into account as they listened to where we are now. They heard that the current principles and sources are beloved and part of the identity of many Unitarian Universalists. The Commission's report notes that they listened to individuals and then sought out the themes of the collective. The report says, quote, "What was clear to us was that both strands, the representative or collective and the individual, called for change." Their proposed Article 2 reflects that call for change while drawing on the themes and language from the past that we hold dear. Later, we're going to sing a hymn that was written to honor the consolidation of the Unitarians and the Universalists in 1961, and the hymn is titled as Tranquil Streams. It speaks of tranquil streams meeting and merging and flowing as one, hearts and minds united. And I always smile at that hymn because the merger of the two denominations was anything but tranquil. There were more Unitarians, so the Universalists were worried that they'd be overshadowed. The white, educated, middle-class Unitarians weren't so sure about the diverse and working-class Universalists. The consolidation took decades of talks, and the election of the first UUA president was highly political and very contentious. I asked Troy to lead us in this hymn today because it sings the dream of a faith that reveres the past and trusts a dawning future. A prophetic and liberating ministry that draws on the power of love. This is the dream we inherited from our ancestors and that we seek to live today.
Our final reading is from My Grandmother's Hands, Racialized Trauma and the Pathway to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies by Resmaa Menakem. More than anything, culture creates a sense of belonging, and belonging makes our bodies feel safe. This is why culture matters to us so deeply. We humans want to belong. We experience belonging, or the lack of it, in our bodies. We experience it deeply. When we belong, we feel that our life has some value and meaning. But we can never belong to a strategy. We can never belong to a movement either, although we can be a part of it. We can only belong to a culture.
Part 3, Values and Belonging. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, by the year 2050, people who are Black, Asian, Hispanic, and members of other now minority racial groups will make up a majority of the U.S. population. In other words, the largest number of people in the U.S. will not be white. Soon, those who are on the margins will be the majority, as we are becoming more racially and ethnically diverse as a nation. One way to respond to this fact is to hold tightly to an idealized culture that really never existed, then knuckle down on further embedding that culture, a culture that favors whiteness, into all the systems of our country, educational, legal, medical, political, all of them. We are seeing that strategy at work in our country each day now. Another way to respond to this fact is to become more adept at bridging differences in culture, to learn cultural competency, and how to notice and appreciate other cultures as well as our own. In his book, My Grandmother's Hands, Resmaa Menakem writes of clean pain and dirty pain. I've spoken about this idea before, and I want to acknowledge that clean and dirty have all kinds of meanings, and not all of them are useful or just. It helps me to think of it in medical terms. A wound that is clean can heal. A wound that is dirty will get infected and not heal. Menachem says that clean pain is the necessary discomfort of healing, the pain that supports growth. It's the discomfort we feel when we are uncertain, but move into that uncertainty with honesty and vulnerability. This is the pain of spiritual growth for individuals and for congregations. The other kind of pain is what Menachem calls dirty pain, the pain of avoidance, blame, and denial. It's the pain that we try to lessen by turning away or by hurting others. It's the pain of cruelty and violence in our words and actions. Dirty pain just creates more pain. It never leads to healing. I've been thinking a lot about clean and dirty pain as we've been discussing the proposed update to Article 2, both in our denomination and in our congregation. Many of us know and love the 7 principles and 6 sources that are contained in the current Article 2. For some of us, they are what brought us to this community. Now, I've noted many reasons, good reasons, to support the Article 2 revisions. We are a living tradition, and it's time to name our values and our center. The update contains all of the current themes and much of the current language. Congregations could still elect to use the 7 or 8 principles and the 6 sources if they choose. The process was expansive and inclusive, and so many people participated. All of these good reasons to support the update speak to my head, my logic and reason. And I have to confess that my heart was having a harder time accepting the Article 2 proposal. So I took the question of my hesitation into my meditation and walks. Those are 2 of my spiritual practices. And as I faced my resistance to this change, I wondered if it was just that it was such a big change. And that did ring true to some extent. Change is just hard. Underneath that, I noticed a memory of what drew me to Unitarian Universalism in the first place so long ago. It was a spiritual home that I thought was defined by the 7 principles. What did it mean for this foundation to change? What did it mean for my identity as a Unitarian Universalist and as an ordained UU minister? And as I explored further underneath those basic questions of identity, I found fear. Fear that I would no longer belong to this faith. I wondered if there would be room for me, a white, educated, middle-class, middle-aged person. I know that our faith has excluded some people over the years, intentional or not. As our circle widens and other identities are justly centered, would there still be room for me? If Unitarian Universalist culture changes, would I still belong? I realized that for those of us who are used to being at the center, those of us who are white, middle class, educated, when we step out of or are removed from the center, it can feel like a loss. Even if we are committed to equity, we may grieve. We may grieve the change. We may feel uncertain. We may feel uncomfortable. And we know, science tells us that when we feel discomfort in our bodies, it feels like fear. Our bodies react with danger, 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 and we go into fight, flight, or freeze before our thinking brain can even kick in. Our challenge is to slow down long enough to notice that we are safe and that what we feel is discomfort. Then we can untangle what that discomfort is all about. And so I work to slow down and unpeel the layers of my discomfort and name what was there: uncertainty, grief, wondering, fear of not belonging. And in the middle of this process of exploring my resistance, I heard OUUC congregant Tiffany Felch say, "We can't have it both ways. We can't believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person and maintain the status quo." And as I took in Tiffany's statement, I heard a clear call. Supporting the Article 2 revision calls me to live my values. I value a vision of a multicultural Unitarian Universalism that shares our good news with all who wish to listen. I value living my life in a way that acknowledges my privilege and uses my power for justice. I value collective wisdom, collective liberation, and the common good. And I value growth for individuals, communities, and organizations, knowing that clean pain is necessary. It was time for me to live my values, to walk my talk, even when, especially when, it is uncomfortable. That is my commitment to the future of our faith. Now, we are not a faith tradition where we tell each other how to think or what to do on matters like this. I'm not telling you today where I stand on Article 2 with any expectation that I'll convince you of anything. I am sharing with you some information about what is happening in our faith tradition in this very pivotal moment. It's a moment that is poignant in so many ways, including as we reemerge from the pandemic. And I am sharing my process of discernment, of asking questions, of reflection and spiritual deepening. My hope is that you will engage with the Article 2 update, discerning your spiritual path and your identity. My hope is also that we as a OUUC community will discern our spiritual identity. Now, OUUC will have 7 delegates for this year's General Assembly in June to vote on the proposed Article 2 revision. If your discernment calls you to represent OUUC as a delegate, please contact Reverend Sarah or me. We'd love to hear from you. Our chalice lighting today reminded us that out of the flames we rise. It is out of destruction that we are recreated. May we be bold, courageous, and kind in this time of recreation. Let's hold a moment of silence together.
Let's sing together Marion Franklin Ham's hymn that she wrote in 1933, anticipating the merger of the Unitarians and the Universalists into the association that we now celebrate as Tranquil Streams. It's in the Gray Hymn Book, hymn number 145, where you can find the lyrics posted in the chat. As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic Church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth and make us free.
Thank you, Troy. If you have a candle or a chalice, please join me as we extinguish our chalices with these words adapted from Emily Richards. Our work here today is at an end, and our work has just begun. The work of holding one another and this community in love. The work of trusting that we are on the right path. The work of believing that what connects us is stronger than what separates us. The work of engaging in that which makes us whole. The work of deeper understanding and commitment. The work of letting go of that which does not serve us. The work of radical inclusion, of collective liberation. The work of this beloved community. A place where we are welcomed, respected, valued, and cherished. A place where we all belong. Amen, and blessed be.
Let's join together in singing our unison benediction.